Imagine waking up every day with the feeling that the bills will never stop coming. With each new bill, hope seems to diminish, and worry grows like an impossible shadow to dispel. But what if I told you that there's a saint known precisely for helping those who face financial difficulties? Yes, Saint Hedwig is not just a historical figure. She has become a symbol of hope for those who seek to escape from suffocation and find a path to renewal. And the most impressive thing? Her story carries lessons that can transform the way we face life's challenges. Contrary to what many people think, faith and overcoming go hand in hand. Saint Hedwig dedicated her life to helping those most in need, including those in debt, who were often imprisoned for not being able to pay their debts. Just imagine living in a time where if you didn't pay what you owed, you could lose your freedom. It seems extreme, doesn't it? But deep down, we are not so far from this reality. Today, many people feel trapped by their debts, not knowing how to turn the situation around. And that's where the story of the saint can make all the difference. But why did Saint Hedwig become the patron saint of those in debt? How can her story inspire us to get out of the pit and start over? What can we learn from her unwavering faith and her transformative actions? These answers could be the turning point you need. And believe me, when you learn this story, you'll realize that there are many more solutions than you imagine. From the earliest years of her life, Saint Hedwig carried with her the weight and grace of a noble lineage. Born in 1174 in Bavaria, she was part of the influential Andechs family, a name that brought prestige, but also great responsibilities. Her destiny seemed set, a strategic marriage and a prominent role in politics. But unlike many in her position, Hedwig saw nobility differently. For her, being in a high position meant serving, not being served. From a young age, Edviges demonstrated something rare among nobles, a heart detached from luxury and a mind focused on the divine. Raised in an environment of great political influence, she could have followed the path of ostentation, but her true wealth lay in her faith. As a young woman, she was sent to a Benedictine convent, where she received an education that went far beyond letters and numbers. There, she learned about humility, chastity, and the simplicity that she valued so much. For Edviges, it was not possessions that made someone great, but rather how much that person was willing to give up for the sake of others. Even though she lived in the luxury of the court, her heart already belonged to something greater. While others worried about titles and possessions, she dedicated herself to prayer and service. She saw silence as a space to listen to God, and fasting as a way to strengthen the spirit. Unlike many around her, she understood that true power did not lie in crowns or castles, but in control over one's own will. It is interesting to note that, nowadays, even if we are not noble, we are also surrounded by distractions that take us away from what is essential. How many times do we lose ourselves in superficial desires, when in fact, true fulfillment lies in simplicity? Hedwig not only believed in these values, but lived them in a practical way. Even though she was married to a duke and had all the comforts at her disposal, she made a point of walking barefoot as a sign of humility. She rejected expensive jewelry and dresses, because she knew that none of these had any value in the face of eternity. What she was building was much more valuable than any earthly treasure, a legacy of faith and dedication. But her life of devotion did not stop her from fulfilling her duties as a wife and mother. And that is where her story begins to take on a new shape, showing that serving God and family can go hand in hand. Getting married at the age of May 12 seems absurd today, but at that time it was common among the nobility. Hedwig married Henry I, Duke of Silesia and Poland, and this union was not just a marriage bond, but also a partnership of faith and charity. Unlike many noble couples who simply enjoyed luxury, Hedwig and Henry had a greater purpose: to use their position to help those in need. While he ruled, she dedicated herself to charitable works, building hospitals, convents, and churches. The couple understood that their power should serve the people and not just themselves. Their relationship was based on respect and commitment to good. Even with 6 children, Hedwig never stopped reaching out to those most in need. Her palace was always open to widows, orphans, and those in debt, because she believed that no one should be forgotten. It was not just distant charity, done with financial resources. She herself visited the sick and fed the poor. Today, we can learn a lot from her attitude. How many times do we limit ourselves to simply feeling sorry for other people's difficulties, without actually taking action? Small gestures, such as donating clothes, visiting a nursing home, or helping a friend in debt organize their finances, can make all the difference. Over time, Edviges and Enrique made a decision that surprised everyone. They took a vow of chastity, dedicating themselves completely to their faith. Giving up their married life was an act of profound spiritual surrender, showing that their love was not only earthly, but also directed to the divine. This level of commitment reveals a truth that transcends the centuries. True love always seeks a greater purpose. And this connection between faith and social responsibility allowed Edwiges to exert an even greater influence on society, including on her husband's political decisions. Edwiges was not only a woman of faith, but also a strategist. Alongside Henry I, her influence extended far beyond charitable works. She understood that, in order to truly help, it was not enough to simply give alms or build hospitals. It was necessary to change the structures of society. This is how she helped her husband create fairer laws, ensuring that the poorest would not be crushed by abusive taxes or imprisoned by unpayable debts. Her vision went beyond welfare. She wanted to change reality in a concrete and lasting way. In addition to working to improve laws, Edwiges was also concerned with education. For her, faith and knowledge needed to go hand in hand. She knew that an ignorant society was easily manipulated, and that true growth only happens when people have access to learning. For this reason, she invested in the construction of schools and encouraged religious education. This vision is so powerful that, centuries later, it is still relevant. Today, how many people are trapped in cycles of poverty due to a lack of knowledge? The greatest charity that can be done is often not to give money, but to teach people how to get out of difficult situations. Her impact on society was also evident in the rescue of indebted prisoners, something that at that time was a cruel sentence. Contrary to what many people think, debts were not just numbers on paper, but real chains that destroyed families. Edwiges interceded for these people, negotiated the release of prisoners, and fought for a more humane system. Her name became synonymous with hope, especially for those who believed they had no way out. And her journey of faith and influence would only become even more intense when she made a radical decision to live in a convent. After her husband's death, Hedwig could have chosen a quiet life, surrounded by comfort and prestige. But for her, that was never an option. She chose to live in the Trebnitz monastery, where she had already helped found a religious community. There, her routine was one of extreme humility. She slept in a simple bed, fasted frequently, and dedicated her days to prayer and serving those in need. Even though she was a widowed duchess, she preferred to walk barefoot, refusing privileges. This kind of choice seems unthinkable today, but it teaches us something powerful. True wealth is not in what we possess, but in the impact we leave on the world. Life in a convent also brought something unexpected. Reports of miracles began to surround Hedwig's name. Sick people were cured, impossible problems found solutions, and even prophetic visions that foretold events. Many believed that she had a divine gift, a special connection with God. But if we think about it, the real miracle may lie in the transformative effect of her faith. After all, how often do we underestimate the power of belief? How many stories have been changed by unwavering faith? Whether in the 13th century or today, believing can be the first step towards making the impossible happen. The most impressive thing is that, even surrounded by reports of miracles, Hedwig never sought fame. Her focus was on serving, not being celebrated. While many sought her out for help, she simply pointed to something greater: faith and compassion. And it is this silent dedication that makes her such a powerful example. Time passed, but her name continued to live on, growing and crossing generations. Until years after her death, something extraordinary happened. She was canonized and recognized as a saint. Saint Hedwig died on October 15, 1243, at the age of 69, leaving a legacy that went far beyond her works during her lifetime. Her name was already known for her actions and the miracles attributed to her, but it was in 1267 that Pope Clement IV officially canonized her. This recognition was not just a title, but confirmation that her journey of faith, humility, and compassion was an example for the entire world. From that moment on, she began to be venerated as a saint, becoming a reference to those facing financial difficulties and seeking hope to start over. Saint Hedwig's impact has spanned the centuries, reaching to this day. Churches and communities around the world dedicate prayers to her, especially those suffering from debt and economic challenges. But there is something deeper in all this. Her story teaches that generosity and trust can open paths where there seems to be no way out. After all, how many people today live suffocated by financial worries, without seeing alternatives? Hedwig shows us that, with faith and action, there is always a way out, whether through solidarity, a new beginning, or the search for spiritual guidance. Her day is celebrated on October 16th, a time when the faithful gather to ask for her intercession and renew their faith. But her influence is not limited to a specific day. Her story continues to be a source of inspiration for those who need to overcome challenges and find a greater purpose in life. And if we stop to think about it, isn't that exactly what we are looking for? A deeper meaning to our daily struggles, a light in the midst of difficulties? Saint Hedwig became this beacon for many, and her story still has much to teach us. Now that you know the story of Saint Hedwig, the question remains, how can you apply these teachings to your life? Is it time to change the way you deal with your financial challenges? If even a 12th century noblewoman was able to transform the reality around her with faith and action, what is stopping you from taking the first step? Maybe all you need is a little more courage and the certainty that there's always a way out. But just knowing the story is not enough. You need to put it into practice. How about starting by reflecting on how you can help someone who is going through difficulties? Or, if that is your case, looking for ways to turn the situation around with intelligence and determination? Saint Hedwig teaches us that no one is doomed to failure, and that generosity and faith are powerful forces to change any reality. So tell me, what about this story impacted you the most? How do you intend to use it to your advantage? If this content made sense to you, take advantage and subscribe to the channel. Here, we always bring inspiring stories that can help you transform your life. And don't forget to activate the bell to receive notifications of the next videos. There's a lot of good stuff coming.